recently indicated that majority of Ghanaians feel comfortable with having the military involved in election security arrangements and all of that. That's quite interesting, isn't it?
Okay, I haven't seen that report, but I do believe generally that if you look at the average Ghanaian and our relationship to the security agencies, we are so much like used to the police service that sometimes they find it very difficult to actually control crowd. People tend to fear, let me put it in a mild way, fear the military more than they do for the average police service. I'm not sure what explains it. Maybe it may be because the police because we are always with them every day and we deal with them, then we get so much used to them compared to maybe the way we relate to the military. I'm not sure why. So maybe people believe that when you are able to blend these two institutions together, maybe Ghanaians will be able to do the right thing rather than just having the police service. But I'm not sure what there could have been a qualitative aspect to that quantitative that could explain why maybe Ghanaians would prefer to have the military attached to be part of electoral security process, just rather than just having the police. But I think it has to do with our past experience of, you always hear civilians have attacked police have been beaten up. You hardly hear that being done to the military. So I believe there's a kind of a deterrence effect. I may be wrong when you are dealing with the military than compared to when you are dealing with the police service. But when there's always the need for them to act, you see the police service also standing their grounds and acting professionally.
Very well. Dr. Nabal, going into this elections, a number of issues have come up. I believe earlier on in our discussions, we talked about the fact that it appears this year's electioneering activities have been heavy on issues rather than what we've seen in the past, politics of insults here and there. Of course, there have been a few skirmishes here and there and the likes, but ultimately, we've seen the campaign being run on issues. And that suggests a certain level of sophistication, if you like, in our system. And the fact that perhaps the political parties are realizing that the electorate is becoming more and more discerning. What does that mean for the elections going into it?
Yes, that is one of the areas that actually highlights the fact that we have evolved since the beginning of the Fourth Republic in 1992. When we began, in fact, the very first one in 92, some of the political parties even boycotted the elections. So most scholars, when they are writing about the Fourth Republic, start doing their analysis from 1996. If you look at the period from 1996 up to about 2000, we have really learned a lot. And there was a turning point in the very last one, 2016. What I call a turning point is I noticed that it had to do with the presidential candidate of the MPP. His political career as a person got to a kind of threshold. And there was a very, very, very explicit plan to contest the 2016 elections. And it had to do with what the NDC did to some extent, but they started late by my estimation. There was a very comprehensive plan. What are the issues on the ground? What can we hit on that we will provide? What can we hit on against the ruling government? Those were the two major structures of their campaign strategy. So there was one that had to do with talking about the so-called incompetencies of the ruling government then. And then the other aspect was what I called desperate promises. And these are the issues. There were policies, and these are the things that the electorates generally say, we are voting on these issues. And high-profile policies and promises, like the free senior High School is a very, very daring policy. A very, very daring policy. So it's just the flagship of all the policies which I may not have to.
But that promise was, I mean, started way back in 2008 and repeated in 2012 and then 2016 as well.
Yes, yes. It was started in 2008, then repeated in 2012. But very much highlighted in the 2016 one, one district, one factory. There was another one that promised to give $1 million per constituency. So many of very, 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 very attractive promises. And so there was that platform where politicians spoke against each other. But these policies too were conspicuously highlighted on the MPP's platforms. So from then, it looks like the 2020 elections has to come with a counter-wild policy. You understand? So you hear the former president, the now presidential candidate of the NDC, also talking about a package for tertiary institution, trying to align with the free senior high school thing. So it has moved away from the learning process where we used to attack personnel to attacking issues. You know, when I spoke about the first aspect of the MPP's campaign, I said they attacked the former regime as being incompetent. They were still attacking issues. They mentioned the personality, but the personality inability to execute policies was what they hammered on. So the dynamics have changed since then, and that is very, very, very impressive.
Right, and that speaks to a certain kind of pattern. And Dr. Ali said, I would want you to come in here. Tell us, let us understand how that has happened. You know, how has that been navigated? And again, the bit about, Dr. Naba raised the issue. I think you said you call it what, desperate
promises.
Policies, right? Some have called it freebies, and that, I mean, you cannot continue to be doing that because you're creating a culture of entitlement. I mean, among the citizenry, they feel entitled, so let's have this, let's have that. Now, I just want to ask a question on the back of that. Is it the case that politicians or the political parties are now beginning to target certain constituents within the broader voter populace, and then trying to get them, and so definitely they are now formulating policies that would meet those specific constituents, even if they may not necessarily be in the broader interest of the entire populace? Is that something you're observing? And if so, how is that, you know, going to shape things moving into tomorrow's elections?
Okay, I think I agree with my colleague that there has been a gradual shift in the way political parties campaign. If you look at the historical evolution of our electoral democracy since 1992, I think three important voter behavior models can explain this. One, the typical Ghanaian voter is guided by two important models. One, the dominant party model. They will vote for the party no matter what. No matter the caliber of the person they put out there, whether he's competent or not, they will vote for him. And I think recent studies have shown that largely majority of Ghanaians vote because of the dominant model, party model. They don't care the competence or the credibility or whatever it is. Once the person is their own, then they'll vote. The other has to do with the sociological model of voter behavior. They look at actually the identity-based leanings. I'm a Fanti, you are a Fanti. I'm a Chim, you are a Chim. You are a Northern, I'm a Northern. So they look at those. And even some scholars extend that identity to even include appearance, skill, how handsome you are, how you talk, and all those things. People look at, but those core group of people alone cannot make you cross the threshold of 50+1. No matter how large the dominant party model is, you always will hit like 40-45%, and you need 50+1. So you have to target the undecided, the swing, the rush, whatever you call them, voter. those are the people who are supposed to add you the 50 plus 1, the plus 1 to the 50. But these people don't vote because of a party. They don't vote because of identity. They are very interested in the kind of message that you send across and how that message benefits them as individual or how it benefits the larger Ghanaian community. So you are looking at a third model called the rational choice model. And the rational choice model measure the message of political parties in terms of its contribution to the general development and the benefit of the individual. So rationality in this sense comes in two forms, where you are focusing on the collective development of the state, what we call the sociotropic rationality, or where you are focused on the individual benefit that you will get from that political party,
right,
where we call the egotropic. So over the years, political parties have realized that to be able to win elections, you need to target this very small. Some people estimate they are 20%, others say 30, 12.
Get you over
people,
that
people just
mark.
have figures for them to get you. And the only way these people can vote for you is to actually look at what you are capable of doing, your competence, your skill, and the kind of message. And we call them rational voters because we assume that they read in between the lines and they can think. And even when you are making promises that you will not be able to fulfill, they know you are lying to them just to get their vote. So those very core group of people are the sophisticated voters over time. But they are sophisticated in terms of maybe the category that they fall. If you look at the egotropic rational voters, they make instantaneous demand for material benefits. And it is part of rationality because they think that the only time politicians look back at us is when they are looking for our votes. Once we vote for them, they go. So it's part of rational behavior to think that now that you also need my vote, I also have to get something from you. It's an element of rationality.
Right.
So those core group of rational voters don't even focus on policies or programs. They look at what they get personally in return. So it means that if you divide even the rational voter population, you see that just a tiny of them, the sociotropic rational voters, they focus on the messaging. So it is very, very crucial. And we have repeatedly voted in a punitive way. Now, though we have an established dominant informal tradition that political parties will spend 2 terms, and then after the 2 terms, we'll vote them out. It's an established tradition, though a lot of established traditions, informal traditions, has been
overturned.
Overturned. Most of them. In the past, we were saying presidents don't lose elections. Incumbents don't lose elections. We only need a runoff to do a turnover. All those things have been overturned. So it is still possible that most of these things, the 2 dominant traditions, can also be overturned. So over the years, people now know that political parties now know that the only way I can make it is to go along with the swing voters.
Right. So let me ask you a question then. The issues so far that have come up during the electioneering cycle and everything, what do you see any of them as having the capacity to draw these people, the political parties would want to draw to be able to get over that 50% to get the 50% plus 1? And if so, what are they?
So largely most of these people, research have shown, are usually independent-minded, business-oriented class of people. Their life do not depend so much on government peanuts. They don't sustain their life based on, but they are looking at the enabling political, economic environment government will create for their businesses to triumph. So when you look at almost the NDC and the MPP, they always look at management, how to manage the economy, and the principles that underpin the ability to create that enabling environment for the private sector businesses to triumph. When they speak to these issues, they speak to financial policies, they speak to general taxation policies and all those, they are actually targeting this core group of voters, especially those at that particular peak level. And they are even research on how to target them, which particular newspapers you need to advertise, or radio stations or TV stations, because it is assumed that when we are looking at this category of people, they will definitely read this category of newspaper. When you are looking at this category of people, they will do this. So all those things have been permitted. But people also talk about fighting corruption. It is one of the major issues that affect businesses and the ability of businesses to triumph. So even if they are not committed to doing it, they'll have a policy that speaks to that particular element. They also talk about general peace and security, because your businesses cannot triumph if there is general level of insecurity in the country. So they always will assure you in their policies that we are going to create the enabling environment. A peace and security is a core pillar of an enabling environment. Once those things are not there, then it becomes very difficult. But when people begin to talk about mostly social intervention policies and all those, and then they are looking at the bottom of the so-called floating
Very
waters.
well.
They generally benefit in that regard.
Thanks for that, Dr. Ali Dusaidi. We'll be coming back to the issues there to see exactly what is happening in the minds of voters. But quickly, let's cross over to the Volta region, where we have our Volta region correspondent on standby, Selom Amenya. Hello. Okay, sure. So we will try to get in touch with Selom Amenya there. But Mr. Yoyang, it's interesting. Dr. Ali Dusaidi has put it nicely. But when you look at the promises that the political parties have put out, it would suggest that there seems to be a lot. Okay, sorry, we have Selom back online. Selom, can you hear me? Great. So, Selom, please take it away. Let us know exactly what is happening.
Electoral materials to the various constituencies and polling stations. And this one here is for the parliamentary elections. And if you can see, it has GPRT office, Big Market, Ho Bankwai 1. And the boxes have their seals on. And the other materials are also packed in this particular bag. They are being transported to the various constituencies. And if I can give you a brief about the Volta region, it used to have 26 constituencies until the OT region was carved out of the region, leaving it with 18 constituencies as of now. We have Nanodro, who is the municipal director, who is going to join. But some other information that I can also give you is that they have 2,237 polling stations and then 919,559 registered voters. And then Ketu South has a greater number, or the highest population so far voter register is concerned, 137,702. And then Akachi North has the least, which is 17,573. We have 61 candidates competing so far as the parliamentary elections is concerned. We are being joined by Nanodro, like I said. He's the municipal director here. Good evening, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Yes, so we've seen that you are readying the materials, transporting them to their various locations.
So far, we have finished everything. What is left is to transport them to the various polling stations that we intend to start around 4 a.m.
Right, so that was Selom Amenya there in the Volta region, trying to let us know exactly what is happening there. We saw in the shots there some materials yet to be deployed to their various centers. Well, we'll be going back to him as and when we're able to reach him. But the conversation also continues here, and I'll be going to Mr. Yoyang. Briefly, we need to be wrapping up here because we have on standby Stephen Yanti, who is going to be speaking with Nana Akomia at the position we've called Ground Zero right here on the premises here, your election command center. So, Mr. Yoyang, picking up from where Dr. Ali Dusaidi left off, the issues, I'm saying, when you look at the campaigns and the promises, it looks like a lot of them will not necessarily meet the desires, if you like, of these people, the political parties, are seeking to draw on. So, is there a disconnect or what? You're looking at free SHS. These people we're talking about perhaps could afford that. You're looking at the issues about Okada. You're looking at free tertiary programs and all of that. Clearly,
and all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. The politics have changed. In the 2016 elections, if you look at what the MPP deployed, as a political party to be able to get the votes of the people, anywhere they went, and in fact they deployed a research team, and they will know that this particular area, they needed this particular area. So even when they made a promise, and the next time they went round and the issues that people needed had changed, they will add on. So I mean, that was the observation. Now, and it looks like, okay, if people can promise and get to power, then let us also promise. So it's the era of promises. And the question is always how, and would the political parties be able to deliver on these promises? Would there be a disappointment to the people, or they would actually fulfill their promises?
Right.
And that is even more dangerous. If they are not able to deliver, then it becomes more dangerous, and that is where the hopes that the people have, may dissipate. But again, like you indicated, the focus in this election is on security, it's on the corruption, it's on the other social needs of the people, infrastructure, education, agriculture, health, and you see that many of the people are asking questions around these things. And you also see that the political parties, especially the two main ones, are clustering their messages, and how they can, I don't know, Doc didn't talk about the issue of monetization,
Right. I'm sure that there's several issues we need to talk about, but obviously our time is, far running, but we need to go quickly, 30 seconds, Dr. Nyaba, your concluding remarks.
Yes, Dr. My namesake, Dr. Alidu, mentioned corruption. And it only comes to play when the fundamental living conditions of the people are affected. That is when you drum home the issue of corruption, people take it serious. But if people are not adversely affected in their standards of living, and you talk about corruption, they are not so much bothered about it. That is why it sells when you are very sure that the economy has affected people adversely.
Very well. Dr. Ali said your closing remarks in 30 seconds.
I think this is an election that's going to determine the future of both President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and former President John Dramani Mahama. And they have all spoken to Ghanaians in the manner that we can all relate to. So I will entreat everybody to go out peacefully and cast their vote and make sure peace prevails. That's what's important.
Very well. Thank you for that message. And indeed, we'll be crossing over right now to Ground Zero, where we have Stephen Anti on standby waiting to have that conversation with Nana Akomia, a member of the NPP and the Managing Director of the State Transport Corporation, STC. Take it away, Stephen.
Right, so thanks very much, Abena, and welcome again to Ground Zero, where I have Nana Akomia right here with me to walk us through what the expectations are and look at some of the concerns that have been raised for security arrangements, how prepared are the EC, etc. Thanks very much for coming, sir. Good evening. I know that it's barely 24 hours to a couple of hours to the actual voting date, and that's the D-Day. I could say that the NPP has worked all these 4 years just to get another mandate. So what are your expectations going into tomorrow's elections?
Well, thank you, Stephen. Let me wish our listeners, our viewers, a good evening. I came here and I've been very impressed with the setup that TV3 has set up. I'm already excited to see how the reporting is going to be. And I'm sure many Ghanaians will be impressed by what you have. As for the elections, the NPP would win. I'm sure even the NDC knows that. They've been doing surveys themselves. But if you take that away, many of the independent surveys, the Political Science Department of Legon, if you remember, they predicted 4 years ago that Nana Akufo-Addo was going to be ahead of John Mahama by 10 percentage points. And that's actually what happened. And the same department has come out again saying that the difference will be about 10 percentage points. Even Ben Epson has come out, my good friends, come out to say that Nana Akufo-Addo is about 10 percentage points ahead of John Mahama. So we expect to win. It corresponds with the surveys that we ourselves have been doing.
And this is a simple win for you. Aside the surveys, there must be a certain reference point for you to have that firm conviction that you will win, because the NDC also believes that they've done enough to deserve a comeback, and they also say they're going to win.
Well, as for the NDC claims, you would agree, well, it's common knowledge that the record that they tell us, that record was rejected by over 1 million voters in this country. So that record that they are standing on is a record that has been discredited by the people of Ghana. So if I were the NDC, I am not going to campaign on that record. I'll campaign on what I have for the next 4 years, not what I have done in between 2013 and 2016, because that record was rejected by Ghanaians, by the largest margin of any presidential election in Africa. So why do you campaign on that record? I don't understand the NDC. You are campaigning on a record that was rejected so totally, the largest margin of rejection in any presidential election in the whole of Africa. So don't go to that record. Tell Ghanaians, admit that that record was not good, and tell Ghanaians how you expect to perform better. So right from the get-go, the NDC got it wrong.
The NDC in its People's Manifesto, I've gone across the country to show to the world what they want to do when they get the chance. The People's Manifesto, they raise several issues: what to do with infrastructure, job push, 1 million job push, and all the others. So there is something to hold on to as wanting to come back.
I saw an advert that they did, a long advert. They paid a lot of money. And they were showing President Mahama working at the Jubilee House and commissioning some projects in his time. Those things were rejected. That record is discredited. Now, if you look at why we are confident, and the opinion polling is showing, justifying our confidence. Look, the long-standing aspirations of the people of this country, we are beginning to achieve and to realize them one by one. Dagbon, since 1992, the place has been in turmoil. Millions of people don't have peace. Now they have peace. A new year now has been installed. The people of Dagbon are not going to forget that. Free SHS. It's been in the Constitution, it's been a national aspiration since 1992. In fact, since Kwame Nkrumah's days. Today we have it. And so all of us can put our hands on our chest and say that no Ghanaian child would have education less than secondary school.
But the NDC has persistently said that the free SHS was started by its government. We know that they started the progressively free senior high school education. So on the contrast, you have your government, 4 years in office, have implemented a totally free senior high school policy, whilst the opposition NDC actually also lays claim to having started it. This is a discussion which has been in the public space before today and before the election of tomorrow, and it's going to be a deciding factor.
But that is one of the reasons why the NDC will lose big time, because everybody in Ghana knows that they didn't start free SHS. So for them to claim they started it, it's a blatant show of dishonesty that would not be lost on the voter. But I say, so we've done the Dagbon peace. Since 2002, it's eluded this country. President Akufo-Addo has led the people of Dagbon to achieve peace. We've done free SHS. We've done national ID cards. The NDC was in office for 8 years. They had the National Identification Authority in place, just next door to you, for 8 years. They didn't produce one card. You are aware. For 8 years, they had a National Identification Authority for all the staff over there. They didn't produce one. We have come, same National Identification Authority. We produced 14 million cards. You have a card. I have a card. Many of your colleagues have cards. That card is going to be the basis of the biometric identification and digitization in this country. We've done it for the people of Ghana. They will not forget that. The digitization that is going on, the free Wi-Fi that is being spread across secondary schools and universities, which is ongoing. The industrial program, which has been a long cherished ambition of this country since Kwame Nkrumah, with the IDIF, one district, one factory, is ongoing. So many of the things that we have wanted to achieve as a country are being realized one by one. It's like this is the time of the destiny of this country to be met.
Let's shift away
and the
from
opinion polls show
Let's shift away from these issues which might be bothering a campaign. Let's talk about preparations, the EC's preparations. I know that the EC, the new administration of the commission came into place and effectively started a new register, which is going to be what we will use for the voting tomorrow. Now, from that preparatory state to today, are you content of all the EC has put in place to ensure a fair, credible, and free elections tomorrow?
But the results show clearly that the EC has done enough preparation. You don't find many complaints about materials not being delivered, people not finding names. You don't find many challenges. But like they say, the sweetness of the pudding is in the eating. Tomorrow is the D-Day. So tomorrow between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m., we would see the results.
So your view is that the EC has done incredibly well?
They've done very well.
And that you have no cause to worry about whether or not there will be a grand scheme to rig the election for one party or the other?
There is one fundamental thing that going forward as a nation we need to look at. This business of one party filling the vacancy of the electoral commissioner, we should look at it again. Because right from the get-go, if one party appoints the electoral commissioner, automatically it breeds mistrust. So we saw it with the appointment of Madam Charlotte Osei.
And the MPP mistrusted Charlotte. Same as the NDC.
And then we saw it with the appointment of Jean Mensah. Automatically, the other party say, once he's been appointed by a sitting president, there's mistrust.
So you think there is a need for us to review
a lot of
the mode of appointing?
A lot of the criticisms that attended the EC's work came from that mistrust. And going forward as a country, maybe these are some of the things that we need to look at. But it came automatically because the people in charge of the elections have been appointed by somebody who's going to contest the elections. But otherwise, the EC's work has been fantastic.
And I also quickly want us to touch about security arrangements. I mean, going into the elections, there were a lot of incidents making reference to what happened at Ayawaso West Wargon and the law that was put in place to curb vigilantism and all of that. So the police service has come out with the flashpoints and all of that going into the 2020 elections tomorrow. What do you make of security arrangements so far in place to ensure?
When you compare the atmosphere today to the same time 4 years ago, there was more tension 4 years ago than today. In fact, these elections that are going to take place tomorrow have been described as very dull by international observers. That if you came into the country today and you came through the airport, you would not even know that there's a major election going on. There isn't much tension. The parties, everybody has done their campaigning. Nobody has been arrested. In fact, just 2 days ago, the NDC had a major demonstration. We all went there, clapped at what they were doing. They finished. They've gone home. It doesn't happen in Africa. Look at what is happening in Uganda, what's happening in just next door, Cote d'Ivoire and so on, Togo. So I have every expectation that this will be a peaceful election like happened in 2016, and the winner will be declared, and we'll move on to have a happy Christmas. As for the NPP, we've done all the preparations. As a serious political party, we've had our parallel tabulation centers. We have a setup like you have here. 2 of them. So even if one fails, there's a backup. 2 in Accra. That is going to get the results from polling station to real time from our agents across the country, feeding into the centers. So by, like happened 4 years ago, by 11 p.m., 12 midnight tomorrow, we should have the results.
You should have the direction that it's going. So a quick one, we have to be wrapping up.
We hope the NDC too has that.
Well,
last 4 years, they didn't seem to have it. Up to now, they don't have the results of the 2016 elections.
Well, I mean, that's something else. But I want us to quickly. I'll take a word from you for the NDC supporters and MPP supporters. You are the two leading parties going into the elections. In order to ensure peaceful conduct, people will need to conduct themselves well. I need a word from you to encourage everyone going into tomorrow's election to vote for their conviction in peace and come back home.
Yes, I mean, we have a record. It's one of the best records in the world of having peaceful, orderly, democratic elections and peaceful, orderly transitions when an incumbent loses. And we must protect that record. It's a heritage that those of us who are voting tomorrow, we have inherited from those who voted in 1996, those who voted in 2000. We must preserve that heritage and go forward to maintain the status of this country. Look, when we have a peaceful election, when we have a transition that is orderly and acceptable, the benefits in terms of the international support that comes into this country in real dollars is major, and we haven't highlighted it enough. So let's all go to the polls tomorrow. At the end of the day, we're all the same people. The leaders met, President Mahama, President Akufo-Addo, and the other leaders. They met a couple of days ago. They pledged peace. Let's not disappoint them.
I know the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, and John Dramani Mahama, together with the other parties, signed a peace pact yesterday. But here, in our interaction, you've told me that you are confident of winning. I want to ask you, what happens if you don't win?
Once it's a free and fair election and we don't win, we're going to prepare for the next 4 years.
Yeah. And life will go on.
Life will go on.
Right.
Once it's free, it's democratic, it's the choice of the people, it's very clear. We will get the results real time. If the results show that we've been rejected, life goes on. We'll prepare for the next 4 years.
Is there your expectation that the NDC would also accept it if they lose?
Oh, they accepted it in 2016 when they were the incumbents. So I don't expect
anything.
I don't expect them to do. The important thing is that the voting process goes on transparently. All the agents have an opportunity to participate and represent the interests of their parties right up to the counting, and everybody agrees that it's been a fair process. Whoever loses, we just go home.
Nana Kwame, I'm very grateful for your time, and I thank you very much for speaking to us here on Election Command Center. And I wish you the very best with your the election and whatever the outcome is. We wish you the best.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So that's Nana Kwame speaking to us there. But I quickly want to take us through some news coming in, and then we'll wrap up our broadcast for this evening. We'll get back to the Election Command Center early in the morning tomorrow to begin to keep an eye on the movement of materials and all the other things that we need to know ahead of the actual opening of the polls at 7. So news coming in is that the Ayawaso West Wogon Electoral Commission office has destroyed surplus ballots made up of some 1,450 presidential ballots and 1,555 parliamentary ballots ahead of voting. At the time our news team visited around 8 p.m. Tonight, party agents were all present to ensure everything is in order, and they were writing down the quality and serial numbers of the ballot boxes of the various polling stations. The materials, we're told by our reporters, will be distributed to the 209 polling stations in the constituency, the Ayawaso West Wogon constituency. So that's news that's coming in. 1,550 presidential ballots and 1,555 parliamentary ballots have been destroyed. These are surplus ballots made up of 1,450 presidential ballots and 1,555 parliamentary ballots. These have been destroyed, and our news team visited the offices of the Ayawaso West Wogon EC office around 8:30 p.m. and all party agents were present to ensure that the right things were done, and appropriately all the serial numbers were recorded, and the quantity and serial numbers of the boxes also were all noted by these various polling stations, and the materials, electoral materials, we're told, for the Ayaso West Wogon will be distributed to all 209 polling stations in that constituency. Right. So as you saw in your visuals there, so those were some of the images coming from the Ayaso West Wogon EC office. So that's how we wrap up with this evening's coverage. And it has been a wonderful couple of hours where we showed you what to expect in the actual coverage of this year's election starting tomorrow from your election command center. We'll get all the news coming to our 7 platforms, TV3, 3FM, Monia FM, Connect FM, Akuma FM, 3news.com. So this is where you get the most authoritative and authentic, credible electoral news all through the time a new president is sworn in and 275 members of parliament are elected. Thanks very much for staying with us for our coverage. I'm Stephen Enti, and the rest of the team, Alfred Kanse and Bella Mundi and all the rest, including Etonam Se, Martin Asiedu, Dr. Johnny Hughes. We say thank you for staying with us, and we'll be right back tomorrow to continue this incredible coverage. Good night.
Don't bring problem to this country, because you don't have anywhere to go. You're all Ghanaians, we need a peace, we need to stay here, you can't go anywhere. So easy, take it easy, do what you can, no problem, you don't have anywhere to go. Please.
During this election, I'm pledging for peace. There shouldn't be any violence during and after the election. Thank you.
Yen pese basabasabi beba ese basabasabi sia enfa na meme nko enfa na mema ifa enti de mesra ban se omomodi anonfa amanfo nkasa na asundwe mra batwe mo bibia ya asundwe obi bia nkoto na aba fefefe yempe gidigidi bia asundwe ne yempe na bibia anya boko ye wi abato no so ne yekenkan a obi bia fa asundwe na bibia anya fefefe ye damos time no so a ukwa no akodi lai no akoto waba wo de ukokomoti na si baabi a wo se wo di si so ma no uwi a ukọ fie peace ya pasundwe si ebeto aba no peace. We are about to vote for the coming 2021 election. All I want is peace and harmony among our countries. May you help each other. Whenever you finish voting, you should go home peacefully and don't create any commotion or any charge or anything against anyone. Even if someone asks you, whom did you vote for? Your vote is your secret. Try to keep it within yourself and go home and go and be with your family. Prevention is better than cure. Stay home and keep yourself safe. As you can see, Corona is still in the system.
During election, a lot of things goes on. But now what we are looking for now is for peace. And I, Mensa, I pledge for peace. And peace will reign for Ghana. For we all to live as one people.
Ghana be say nye fine election days no ba vote. Won pasa afine won ta adwenjole Ghana. Wo so ba se kome no ka fon shikine kono fe no se o mo ko ya vote we ka o t-shirt ekete no na ba ke ko bo shika no ke no ka mo ku mi po fai ka ya ko te na mo bwe owu e manwe mo ko eji ebu na na eji ebu ma ma ko eji ebu mi po fai won se ekome se mo no mi wale yo won anya fenye fi ekome ni ga na ada mo shi eko enyi mo chebi ko gba mi.
Salamu alaikum dan wana musulman. Ku ya hankali election ga. Kowa ya je election je gida. Kada ya zama wuri ne ce kuma yana gida. She an kare ana son a kira yi. Ke da kowa ya je zama murka muna so kwanci hankali cikin gari ba mu so basa basa. Muna so a yi a kare lafiya kowa ya je zama gida.